Hi, my question is for Rohan. I was involved at the night and we did an awesome job.
Thank you.
And my favorite scene is the Oscar. And how long? I want to know how long it's up to film.
Well, we're making movies in today's day and age, so they only ever give you like 25 to 30 days to shoot something. So I think we shot that entire sequence in like 11 hours. Yeah, so I did basically 5 days of rehearsal just to memorize every step of that. And then we just showed up and it felt like, proper indie filmmaking where it was just me and Mike looked at each other and we were like, there's a lot to do here, so let's just go and I'll try and get it right. And it was like me, Mike, and a camera guy, and a bunch of ridiculously talented stunt people. But we powered through that in 11 hours. Yeah. It was insane. I think I went home and I don't remember falling asleep. I'd probably just collapsed. But it was, it's so fun. It's a great.
So that was just one camera that you did?
Yeah, we used
Wow.
one camera. Yeah, I think they went and cleaned up the next morning on some inserts of hits and stuff. But yeah, it was one camera. Sometimes one camera's faster than two. I think, because sometimes when you start to get in that momentum, it's just everyone's on the same page and you're in that flow state. It's really helpful. And then to have the B camera to go shoot something else the next morning so they can go clean it up or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely helpful to have a second camera. But sometimes one is just
But sometimes one, no,
Yeah.
it's true.
Keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of course.
Michael, for you, how did you get the call? They had already filmed a lot of Halloween 6, right? And then how did you get the call and what happened with all that?
Well, I just got the call. I came in and tried out for it with 3 or 4 other people in front of the producers and the director and the writer. And at the time, I never even watched any of the Halloweens. So I got called in and boy, I raced out. I think back then it was the video store. So yeah, we filmed that in '94, by the way, and Halloween 6. And went in and they have us do the iconic where he sits up. He does the sit-up thing like that.
Wait, that was your audition? You did that?
Yeah, and then the walk and all that. And I ended up getting the part and doing all the added-on scenes. And at the very beginning, when I did all that, a lot of people didn't realize there was 2 people that played Michael Myers in Halloween 6. George Welber did 4 and 6. And then there's a scene when you were talking about in the strobe light, the room, when I'm going there and killing everybody with the machete, and you can actually see George going up against the glass. So people go, well, wait a minute, if that's Michael Myers getting thrown up, who's playing Michael Myers? And after that, they realized, hey, there was another one that started doing these conventions. So, yeah, it was kind of exciting, and I just went out and watched every one of the films, and then, if you watch every Halloween movie, my advantage was there was several films before I did mine, Halloween 6, so I could really watch each person, how they played it. And if you notice, everybody's got their own little flair to it, too. I added a few little things to it, like grabbing the knife, and then I put it back, and I grabbed the machete. Well, that wasn't scripted, I just did that, I went with it. And then, did the head tilt, and then pushing the girl on the farm machinery. I got almost a little moment of compassion that I slammed her on the machine. So you kind of bring your own flavor to it too. Yeah. And it's really hard not to run because somehow they're always running, but I'm always right there. Yeah.
Okay, right over here.
Oh, so my question's for Michael. You've been in a lot of popular films, and will you tell us your thoughts on the Academy finally recognizing stunt work with an Oscar?
It's a great question.
She's been in a lot of film.
Yeah, I actually years ago, God, it had to have been in worked on a thing called, what was the name of it? Patrick Swayze, believe it or not. It was a Civil War film. It was a mini-series for TV, and I got nominated for one of the best fight sequences. I didn't win, but I did get nominated. I thought that was pretty cool. They came out with the awards and stuff. And they call us the unsung heroes.
We've had, some of the older guys that were like stuntmen, actually, George Wilbur told me, at one point, I think he was a stuntman back during the time of John Wayne and all that kind of stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
he was on a set where a stuntman was killed, and they basically covered the guy with a sheet and continued filming.
Probably did. Probably in the Western days, It's a different world back then. We got the equipment's a lot better now, we'll put it that way. One of my specialties was high falls. I used to do a lot of high falls and stuff, I was more like 50, 60 feet. And the difference between a stuntman doing a high fall and a high diver is you can't do it with form, and you're usually carrying a shotgun, firing it, partially on fire, and you got to go backwards, stuff like that. So, and then as you're falling, you got to make it look like you're dead, so you can't go in into 1.5 with a twist type thing. Yeah, so it's yeah. So that's kind of George Wilbur, all those old stunt guys. You guys know who Dick Warlock is?
Yeah.
Dick Warlock, George Wilbur, Tom Morga. Jim Winburn just passed away, and George Wilbur. We were all in the Stuntmen's Association at the same time. We were all stuntmen that played Michael Myers. Think about that. It's crazy, huh? Yeah.
Okay. Who else had a question? Over here.
For Rohan. So, throughout the entire movie of Silent Night, Deadly Night, you're communicating back and forth with Charlie. He's inside of your head. How does that work while you're filming it to make it look good?
Oh, you just look really silly, really. No, man, Mike P. Nelson, the director, asked me, do I want, do I want to cast someone off camera, I guess, like as a reader or whatever, and I said, no, I'll just do it with you, and it's weird being an actor at the best of times, because you just are trying to pretend that you don't look insane, because you do. But on top of that, when you're trying to hear voices that aren't there, you feel crazier. But Mike is like objectively a fantastic actor. Like I would be reading with him, and I'd literally there's in the blooper reel, I'd stop and be like, "You should come do this scene. Like you're just better than me." So I was very lucky. Mike was reading off camera with me, and he was fantastic. But yeah, it's a whole lot of pulling faces and then being like, this is weird. It's just odd, yeah. But yeah, Mike read everything off camera for me. It was fantastic.
Okay. Who else had a question? Over here.
For Michael, do you have a preference between the theatrical cut or the producer's cut?
Theatrical cut. That's where I did most of my kills.
Right here.
I have a question for Michael and Rohan. So, what do you guys think is the source of Michael Myers' powers per se, or his strength?
Michael, you want to take this one?
What's the source of Michael Myers' power or strength? I guess you mean like
Thorn. Thorn.
I'll take that.
You saw all the cult stuff, right? On that, yeah. I think that's where his power was. I think they still leave a little bit of mysticism with it. You don't fully explain it, but I think that's kind of where they're leading to, like an ancient kind of evil power that takes them over. I mean, that's my guess. That's what I thought.
I want to stick with that answer, man. It's so good. I wish I had something else for you.
One question I always have for the panel is, how did you know that this is what you wanted to do? Like, how did you wake up and one day say, okay, I want to do free falls for 40 feet? How did you wake up and decide, I want to do costuming and all the effects and all that? And how did you wake up and decide, I want to be an actor and play roles on stage? Like, what, for each one of you, what was it that, and when, at what point did you know, like, yeah, this is it, this is what I'm going to do?
Rohan, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. I don't know. I never, I don't think I ever it never felt like I made a choice to do it. I remember being like 5 years old and embarrassing my whole family, but just, always performing, always putting on, just being like the most annoying brother in the world. And then I guess like committing to it really happened when I was really bad at everything else. And it just sort of opened itself up to me and was like the source of a lot of joy for me. You know, I find a lot of people, and this applies to everything, but when I'm asked about like how to get into acting or how I got into it, it's like, if it's not truly something that's always occupying you as an impulse, it's a really hard thing to pursue. And so I find a lot of people that do this professionally throughout any position in filmmaking all have a similar aspect of like, some people say, oh, I fell into it, but sometimes I feel as though it's just where they were headed to start with, you know?
That's in a nutshell. I guess I made the decision because I was unemployed.
That helps. That forces you to figure something out.
Rant.
Yeah, I was a secretary. I had a secretarial job in New York, and the company was moving, and so I wasn't going with them, so I could get unemployment. Meanwhile, I had been hanging around with a bunch of other kids that were film, buffs and fans and everything, and one of them said, hey, I'm friendly with these guys that are making a film, and if you want, why don't you come and meet them and maybe you could work on it. And it was Trauma.
Oh,
It was Lloyd Kaufman. And it was their first film.
Not a bad start, huh?
Yeah, that's what they were doing. It was the first film that they were doing, which was called Squeeze Play.
Yep.
And I did like a bunch of work, just office work and just production work. And I did some costumes. I did arrange some of the costumes. And then what happened was after that film, Charles Kaufman, who was Lloyd Kaufman's brother, was going to make Mother's Day, a horror film. And he said, hey, you come and work on it, but you know what, I just want you to do the costumes. And I was like, oh, well, okay, it's a job, so I said, okay, fine. And then I realized, wow, if you do costumes, that's the only thing you have to worry about. So I was like, okay, that's what I did. And so I then continued to pursue that career. So yeah, but actually when I was a tiny kid and I would watch old movies on TV, I just felt like I knew what it was. I don't know what that means, but I felt like I knew what it was. Not just watching of it, but what it was. So, and I don't know what that means. Next.
It was my destiny. I'm second generation stuntman. My dad was an old stuntman actor. And he goes back to the rawhide days. So I grew up as a kid watching my dad fall on horses and grew up on a ranch. And my uncle Freddie Wall, he was the original Spider-Man that came out. The old school Spider-Man, this is back in like the 60s when they came out the first time. He was a circus performer, so I grew up, my uncle living 2 doors up, I had all the circus equipment in his yard. My dad was a stuntman, I was an athlete, and I already had an open door through the family. Walked right in the front door, and I loved it, became a stuntman, actor, mostly stunts, 80% stunts. I was what you call a 10 and under guy. They didn't give me too much dialogue, but if you see me on something, it's usually 10 lines or under, and I'm going to get shot or beat up or hit by a car or lit on fire or whatever they want. Or I just played the thug, the bodyguard through the whole thing before I got killed. But landing the Michael Myers thing has just been incredible, and I've really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you, and I want to thank all of you for being here and coming down.
Take a couple last questions. Who has them?